So, what is my book about? A lot of you are going to be wondering what it's about, and if it's like a popular level book, if it's an academic book, if it's a mystery, or if it's just whatever kind of book. You want to know what it is, what you're getting. Well, in theory, my book is what I refer to as called a pre-apologetic book. Now, for those of you that don't know, apologetics doesn't mean I'm sorry, like wah wah. No, apologetics comes from the Greek, which means answer, and it's a defense of a position. So it's a step back from actually going into lots of hardcore arguments. It's not helping any. I completely understand this is not helping pretty much at all. The book is going to be written in the form of, I would say, between popular level and academic level. Some of the concepts that I bring up might be academic. I try my best to whittle them down to popular level. To give examples, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I make good transitions, sometimes I don't. And you're like, well, why? Can't you see that you're not making good transitions? Yes, that would be fantastic. I write stream of consciousness, and I've just been writing for myself the last half decade. So most of my writing has not been disseminated amongst the populations. I've written essays here and there, and so this is just a bunch of my essays and my thoughts put together. That's really what this book is. This book is like a peek into my brain, a peek in to see how I came to conclusions that I did. It's sort of how I came out of my atheism, and I came back into a Christian, mere Christianity understanding. So when I'm engaging in arguments, I don't mean like yelling at people and stuff. When I engage with thoughts, let me put it that way. When I engage with thoughts people have about Christianity and my own thoughts that I was having, I would have to answer certain questions. I would have to answer questions about, well, how do I know that I know? Now, for some of you, you're like, what? It's basic epistemology. How do you know that you know something? So this is something we also get into when we talk about, a lot of Christians don't like apologetics because they think it's all about intellectualism and I'll just let the Holy Spirit lead and guide me and this and that, and I'll just go to the Bible as my source of information. Well, that's fantastic if you already believe that the Bible is true. How do you know the Bible is true? So you have to do the apologetic work even in basic and simple theology. So you have to do apologetic work in anything. So anybody is an apologist. If you have a belief or you have a thought that you like, and you have this thought in your head, and you speak it out, and you defend it, you are an apologist for whatever thought that you're having. You become an apologist for UK basketball. You become a Donald Trump apologist, a Hillary Clinton apologist. So it's certain positions and thoughts and statements that you make, do you try to make a reasonable and logical argument on why your position is more true than someone else's position. That's the simple tenets of what apologetics is. So my book is basically taking a step back, taking the foot off the gas of saying Christianity is true, that Jesus is God, taking my foot off the gas there because we can't get there yet. Most of us can't get there yet. Why can't we get there? Because most of us haven't been given the tools to get there yet. We have these thinking processes, and if you go read C.S. Lewis's Abolition of Man, I think you'll completely understand this book is more akin to Abolition of Man than it is Mere Christianity. So those of you that know C.S. Lewis and know that my love is C.S. Lewis, not that I worship the man, I try my C.S. Lewis glasses on, if you'll allow me to say that. But, so, if you read Abolition of Man, he predicts the rise of postmodernism and what it will do to society. He did that back in the 50s, and he was spot on. Very, very, very spot on. And he did this by looking at a grammar book that was going to be given to middle schoolers. So, very much like Abolition of Man, hopefully not as opaque and obtuse as Abolition of Man, because Abolition of Man makes me pause, and it takes me like a month to read that book, because it's so dense, there's so much being said in very few words. Now, to quote Blaise Pascal, in regards to my book, I would like to say that if I would have had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. I would have written a shorter essay, but it's not true. I have a problem with words and the fact that I love them. I love to speak them. I love to say them. I have the words. I have the best words. That's my Donald Trump impersonation. I love words, and for me, writing an essay is very artistic. For some people, writing an essay is not that at all. I used to write a lot of poetry and a lot of prose. What I found out is I do that now, but I do that with the academic language. Now, for most people, you look at academic language and you're like, ugh, it's hoity-toity, superfluous, nonsensical drivel. See, I did it there again. But you look at it as such. Now, there are two reasons that you would want to become very verbose in your verbiage and use the $12 word when you could use a $5 word. There's a reason why we do that. For some intellectuals, it's to obscure things. And for other intellectuals, it's to enlighten things. So there are two main reasons and why we use such verbiage. One, it's to obscure the truth. And two, it's to enlighten the truth. Because sometimes the $12 word actually is more specific and more concise to what's being said than using a $5 general generic term. Some people say, well, not everybody can understand that. I get it. That's why when we had my high school class, I say my high school class, Richard, I've taken over and I'm calling it mine now. A good buddy of mine, Richard Weiss, allowed me to come and teach some of his high school students Mere Christianity. And, sometimes I would skip over words like homage, and I would say things like irreducible complexity, or wow, I just ran a major red light. I was but going too fast to slow down in the rain for that red light. Anyway, so I would use some of these words and be like, guys, do you know what that word means? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I forget. Some of these things they don't know. I couldn't believe this one. I couldn't believe that they didn't understand and know who Sean Connery was. I literally got up out of the room and walked out. You don't know who Sean Connery is? Are you human? It's Bond. James Bond. So, this book is written in a way that it should entice and hold intellectuals. And the hope is that it takes people who are not intellectual and causes them to step their game up a little bit. Now, I don't say that with condescension. I mean that. So here's why I don't change a lot of the language. I was talked to my whole life as an adult. Even when my father spoke to me when I was 4 and 5 years old, he spoke to me as if I were an adult. And I don't mean to say that he was hard with his language. He spoke to me as a person who could understand language. He spoke to me as a human person who had dignity, who had intelligence. He spoke to me like that. So I don't want to speak down to you because I don't want to infer that you don't have the intelligence to understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to say it the way it's supposed to be said, the way that the terms actually are in the academic world. I'm going to still use those same terms. I may try to break it down for you like a C.S. Lewis type thing where I give you an example of, or I ask you probing questions to initiate some responses. But I don't want to spoon feed you. Because me spoon feeding you this information, the kind of information that I'm talking about in this book, Unabashedly Resolute, The Chasm, is not something that I can do for you. It's something I can present to you and something that I can give you, but I can buy you the treadmill, but I can't make you walk on it. I can't walk on it for you. I can give you the ingredients, but I can't cook the food and eat it for you. All right? All I'm doing is I'm giving you the recipe, and I'm saying, here's the recipe, you go get the ingredients, and you do it all yourself. Why? Because me doing it for you is not going to help you. It's about creating a discipline. It's about creating this responsibility, this thinking process in your brain. It's about recalibrating that. It's about taking that thinking process in your brain and rethinking thinking. So the whole project of the book that I'm writing now, all the chapters I'm going to put together, is going to be called Unabashedly Resolute, Rethinking Thinking. And so that's why I'm taking my foot off the gas for a lot of these theological things and a lot of these intellectual arguments about the problem of evil and morality and all this, because we're not there yet. I don't know if you're there yet. My guess is you probably aren't there. And if you think you're there, hopefully this book will cause you to step back and go, ooh, I wasn't even there yet. You know, C.S. Lewis says in Mere Christianity, he's like 2 chapters in, he says, nah, don't misunderstand me and think that I'm positing a Christian God right now, that I'm just leading you up, where I'm going to drop the bomb on you. It's a Christian God. We're not even close to being there yet. I'm just saying that there's evidence that there's something out there. So what I'm doing is I'm throwing questions at you, and I'm presenting you with rebuttals and my opinions on positions that you may hold in an effort to get you to wrestle out why you believe what you believe. And that's the basis of this. This is what I've been doing. My late father, Fred, was a brilliant man. And he told me, before I became a minister in this church, but he told me well before that, but he said, son, just because, now in our church we use this term man of God, just because the man of God, I think that term's a little bit fallacious and needs to be parsed out way more than it is, but for the sake of time and arguments and things, we'll use it. The man of God, just because the man of God says something from the pulpit does not mean it's true. Now that's brilliant, and for a young 13, 14-year-old kid, coming to understand that just because it comes from the pulpit doesn't automatically give it the authority of God. There's lots of things that come across pulpits that are actually from the other one. they've come belched out of somewhere full of sulfur and what have you. So, and then some of it's just a deviant human nature and human lust and the lust of the flesh. Anyway, so he said, what you need to do is you need to get the Bible and other books. He said other books, science books, and get other things, other resources, and check to make sure, do your own reading, and check these guys, make sure they're telling you what's right. And he says, and if you hold a position, and you think you're right, you need to try your best to prove yourself wrong. And if you can prove yourself wrong, if you can't prove yourself wrong, then it's possible, just possible, that you might be right. And so, people, I'm not joking. You may have heard me say this before, but I have taken every single belief I have ever held, and I have wrestled it in submission, wrestled it into the ground, as it says in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 10, I believe. It says, take every thought captive. Take every thought captive. Every high thing that exalts itself above the knowledge of God, take it captive to the obedience of Christ. I have taken every thought and I have wrestled it like Jacob wrestling the angel into submission. Put it on the altar and says, does it live or does it die? I have put God on the altar. I have put religion on the altar. I have put atheism on the altar. I have put myself on the altar. I have put my very existence on the altar. I have put every thought in my head has gone on the altar. Why? I don't have time to have bad thoughts. I don't have time to believe bad and poor philosophies. Will I? I probably will. But that's why I put it on the altar. And if it's a bad philosophy, if it's a bad thought, if it can't be proven to be probable or rational, or for those of you that this may be overhead, but if I don't have a warranted belief, if I can't prove it somehow, whether through warranted belief, through logic, through reason, through rationale, if I can't prove it some way in some of the disciplines of knowledge, I'm going to discard it. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't have time for bad philosophy. So in this book, you're getting a look into my mind of how I've worked things out. Do I have everything right? Absolutely not. And here's the good thing. Here's the good thing. You can challenge me on this book. You can refute me. You can excoriate me. You can reject me. You can call me names. Or you can simply ignore me. Those are all well and good. It is not my job at this point to be responsible for your reaction. Unless I have intentionally written the book to defame or to hurt people or to incite violence. If I've done something intentionally in the book to willfully hurt someone, then it would be my responsibility, your response. But if I have done none of those things and my conscience is clean, I bear no responsibility for your reaction to this book. Now, some of you will read it and you'll love it right away. Some of you will read it and you'll hate it. But maybe you'll go back to it another time and go, you know what? Maybe he's got something here. Some of you will absolutely absolutely hate this book. And probably be upset you spent $1.50 or $3 on this book and be like, I can't believe I gave this guy money. Now, like I said in the post, if you did happen to give me money, I would hope that you would continue to buy my chapters, just so you could help put me through Oxford, so I can get a proper education and come out and actually be able to write something intelligible, something you might like. Although I can't guarantee you that if I get through Oxford that I will write something that you will like. We just might have irreconcilable differences when it comes to worldview. But this book is really just an insight into why do you think the way you think. And we start out, the first chapter, we start out with communication. I start with communication and language and words and meaning. And why do I start there? I think it should be obvious. If we can't agree on the objectivity of words and language and communication, any conversation we have in any medium will be an exercise in utter useless futility. Futility. Did I say futility? Futility. I don't want futility. I added an extra word in there. I usually don't say that. It'll be an exercise in futility. Because if words are subjective, and I call it in the book, I call it linguistic relativism. If it is subjective, we run a huge risk of simply creating a house of mirrors. For ourselves. Where nothing we say gets out. We're only ever looking at ourselves. Only what we say matters. If my interpretation is the only thing that matters, then I might as well be looking at a house of mirrors. That way everything I see talking to me, every person I see talking to me, is me. It's like an echo chamber, but with mirrors, because you visually are seeing yourself talking to yourself. So you have this house of mirrors, and you're talking to yourself. And anytime somebody comes up to the mirror to talk to you, you see yourself. You hear your words, and you hear your ideas. Now think about that. If you believe in subjective language, wherein you control, as the listener, you control the interpretation of what is being said by the speaker, pay attention, then when you get offended, you are not, I repeat, not offended at any verbal or vocal utterance by the speaker. The speaker has no authority or no control over what you hear. So when you hear those words that make you so offended at the microaggression stuff, when you hear that, what you are actually hearing are your own words from your own mind, from your own mouth, and the only person who is thinking racist thoughts in that moment that you can prove is thinking racist thoughts is yourself. You alone are responsible for creating the racial words whereby you yourself are now being offended. You have actually just offended yourself. If language is merely subjective. And in that subjectivity, the listener or reader is solely responsible for the interpretation. You create the offense that you are thereby offended from. Let that sink in. Now you're going to say, well, there are problems with objectivity in language. Yes, there are. But at least we have a starting point. But at least we have a common bluff, or a common cliff, a common piece of ground whereby we can start to build a dialogue from. In subjectivity, there is no dialogue bluff. There is no common ground of dialogue. And if this is not in my book, it absolutely needs to be. I need to go back and re-listen to this as I'm writing and add this into the book, because this is some good stuff. This is gold right here. So this is mainly the main points of the book. And so I wanted to give you a bit of a teaser into the things that I'll be talking about. I may have gone into a little bit more than just a teaser. I may have gone into a full-blown lecture series here. I'm actually driving to pick up my wife at the airport. She's been in Honduras, second shooting with a fellow photographer. So I've had this nice 30-40 minutes here to get something off my chest in preparation for the book going live on Friday. So even if this is not the first chapter, and this first chapter, I say it in the book, but I need you guys to understand this. Since we're not there yet to even start having an argument, we're not there. We first have to establish if language is objective or not. Because we're not there yet, I'm not giving you everything. I'm not feeding you the whole thing. I'm basically, like the Apostle Paul says, I'm giving you milk right now because your stomachs aren't strong enough for meat. So in the first chapter, I'm giving you guys meat. We're not ready for the Boston Marathon just yet, because we just learned to crawl yesterday. Okay? So you're not going to do well in the marathon. But let's get you on your feet first. So, and I don't say that in any way condescending. I say that because that we have allowed ourselves, or society has allowed us to be taught to think certain ways, and only those of us who, if you're like me, I never stop thinking. It's the one muscle in my body that is like pretty buff, because I think all the time. I'm constantly thinking. I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking about something that I'll be thinking about in the future. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to be thinking about it. And what type of thinking I'm going to imply upon that thought. But is it necessary to be a crazy thinker like myself? No, it doesn't. But all of us are inquiring. Inquiring minds want to know. Little TV advertisement from back when I was a kid. Inquiring minds want to know. So, you don't have to be Oxford elite to understand any of this. What you need to be is you need to be open. Oh, it's delivery parking, media parking, media parking. Service and delivery vehicles only. I missed my parking. What you need to be doing is you just need to be curious, and you need to ask questions. If you want to find the right answers, you have to first start with the right questions. And then once you have the right questions, then you have to have the right thinking process. You have to have the right process to come to a right conclusion. You can have all the right questions, you can have all that, but if you don't know how to put it together, then you're going to come to a point where you're going to come to a wrong conclusion. Subjective reasoning would say, well, my wrong conclusion is correct because I thought it. But who are you, and why should I believe you? Why should I believe your subjective thoughts over my own subjective thoughts? It would be stupid of me to allow myself to agree to your subjective thoughts when I can have just as good of subjective thoughts of my own. I mean, that would be asinine. You're no better than me. Actually, we're equal because all our thoughts are equally valid and equally true. So, I want to think my own thoughts, and they're just as true as yours. Because you can't say mine aren't true. And if you do say mine aren't true, that is intellectual dishonesty. So, that's a little bit about Unabashedly Resolute, the Chasm, Chapter 1 or Essay 1. Many more to come. Thanks, guys, for listening. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. Talk to you later. Bye.